kind of fun to hear my kids and grandkids singing them and stuff like that, you know. And I was talking about the time that my dad came out to New York somewhere in the late 30s, very early 40s for the first time, and met folks like Pete Seeger, Lee Hayes, people who were going to become lifelong friends. And because they had so much in common, they both believed that the songs that regular people were singing were just as important, and sometimes even more important, than the songs that was getting played on the popular radio, because the songs that people were singing were telling the stories about who they were and what had happened to them, you know, all the disasters that had befallen them, and you weren't hearing some of those things on the popular radio. It hasn't changed at all much. And so they started putting out songbooks of all these kinds of songs that had traveled with different sort of groups of people. You know, mine and disaster songs, cowboy ballads, trail tunes, chain gang songs, lumber tunes, you know, murder ballads, lots of murder ballads from everywhere. And they put out these little books of all these kind of songs. And it didn't take long for a lot of young people at that time in the 50s around the world to discover these books and these songs and their own histories in some way. And you had a lot of urban kids in those days learning these old songs, which began what we used to call the folk scare of the 1950s. And the other thing that they had in common was the idea that, you know, there's times when a lot of people get together to work on something, you could get more done than if everybody's trying to work it out for themselves. And so Pete and my dad and all these others would show up at the union halls and the, you know, the meetings that was going on, or the picket lines or whatever. And actually Pete told me a story one time that they had showed up to play at some hall somewhere, and just before they got up on the stage, a woman came out of the crowd and accosted my dad. She said, "Well, Mr. Guthrie, I like your songs, but I think you ought to start writing songs about some of the women that are working just as hard as some of these guys here." She said, "I belong to the ladies' auxiliary," whatever union it was, and she was going on, and it wouldn't stop. And my dad finally said, "Hang on, I got a song for you."
Well, there once was a union maid who never was afraid. Well, the goons and the gangs and the company face and the deputy sheriffs would make the raid. She went to the union hall when the meeting it was on, and when the company boys come round, she always stood her ground. "Oh, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. No, you can't scare me, I'm sticking to the union. I'm sticking to the union. Till the day I die."
fun singing these songs in some of the halls that we just played on the tour. It took 6 union guys to carry this guitar from the curb to the stage. Some of the brothers doing all right out there. But Pete continued his story. He said that after the show that evening, they had packed up their stuff. They was walking off the stage, and the same woman came back. She said, "Well, Mr. Guthrie, that was a very nice song, but it did not mention the Ladies Auxillary." And so he wrote her a song on the spot. Oh, Ladies Auxillary, it's a good auxiliary, got the best auxiliary you ever did see. So if you need an auxiliary,